The views and opinions expressed in listening are those of the host of the program and its guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of WGTE Public Media.
How do we find purpose in our lives? How do we define purpose? One could argue, as poets, philosophers, and prophets have since the time of the Romans and Greeks, that this pursuit, purpose, is what makes us human. As Thomas Merton put it, "Ask me not where I live or what I like to eat, but ask me what I am living for." Some live for duty, to God, to country, to both, or for family, for work, for certain ideals, or for happiness. The Dalai Lama has said that the purpose of life is to be happy. We ask a group of people what purpose is to them, how they find it. Tom Seaman was raised in Toledo in the projects in his formative years. Tom was saved by his own ambition and by St. Francis de Sales High School. He went on to become a highly successful businessman, then a philanthropist, and now an author, wanting a better and higher purpose.
I mean, we're in the projects here in Toledo where you grew up.
Yes, this unit right here, Unit 13, just 1/3 of this building is where we lived, and I think we lived here until my mother had 9 children. She eventually had 12. So there were 10 people in this little part of this building. Unbelievably tight, yeah. So I guess my first thoughts about my sense of purpose were, I concluded when I was a young kid that I wanted to be either the heavyweight champion of the world like Muhammad Ali, who I thought was an interesting guy, or the President of the United States, or the richest guy in the world, so I could buy all the popsicles when a kid had knocked a popsicle out of my hand, Yeah. So I had these kinds of dreams of very high achievement from a young age. Purpose really, I think, early in life was based more in religion because I was raised fairly Catholic, by a quite Catholic mother and had a lot of exposure to nuns and priests. So I think that's where I would walk the streets at night and ask, why did God make me? Why are we here? These sorts of big existential questions, which I honestly thought about at a very young age.
So is that how you got to St. Francis? Do you think you would have turned out sort of the same sort of person without St. Francis?
I think that St. Francis played a huge role in it because of the people I hung around with at St. Francis. Before I got to St. Francis, I was hanging around with some guys in the neighborhood, and we were starting to do some things that, if you got caught, would be considered crimes,
Yeah.
Throwing pumpkins onto a highway on top of cars, or minor stealing, or, certainly vandalism. And so when I arrived at St. Francis, I started hanging around with a whole different kind of kid, and who were thinking about big thoughts about politics, and they were reading, and they were religion and these questions. And so I think St. Francis definitely helped me define my purpose better, and also I think got me more on the straight and narrow without even realizing they were doing it. It was just by the kids I was hanging around with. So I decided that I would try to do an act of kindness every day for a stranger, ideally for a stranger, but if not, I get home at night, then do it at home. And sometimes this act of kindness can be something very large, like giving a huge scholarship to St. Francis, right? That's the kindness for that day. But the next day, it might just be something small. And one of the things you find when you do this is that it actually makes you a happier person too.
Quite a story.
Yeah, the times were interesting times for sure.
Well, thank you for talking with us.
All right, Keith, thank you.
Father Ron Olszewski, Father O to most people, is the longtime principal, headmaster, and president of St. Francis de Sales, a Catholic school for boys. Now semi-retired, he continues to teach religion at St. Francis and also does weekend parish work. Though he has a PhD, Father O communicates with high school boys in a simple, honest, and direct way. He never condescends. He is not abstract. He preaches in the same way. He is indeed a master communicator and a priest's priest. He has spent his entire adult life teaching young men how to become Christian gentlemen.
This is what you've been doing your entire adult life, teaching young men how to find their own paths to purpose. Is that a fair?
I think that's pretty fair. We always talk about, we take boys, we try to make them into young Christian gentlemen. I think they have a yearning for spirituality. I think they have a desire to be connected to other people. So I think they want that, but sometimes they don't know exactly how to do that.
And what's the key?
We have to get out of ourselves and give ourselves to something bigger, whether it's service, a team, a passion for your profession, writing, teaching, whatever it might be. And then we really find ourselves. You know, I think if I spent 40 years as a principal or president here, and some of those days, I didn't have any self at all. You know, you start at 7 o'clock in the morning, you go till 10:30 at night, you're just tied up. But I think you find who you are too. I had my students one time, I said, so for this test, instead of taking it yourself, how about if I put you in groups of 4, you work on it together, and you all get the same grade. And they were reluctant to do that. First, they said, oh, this is good. So they divided all the questions up. Each one did a question. I said, well, the grade's not very good. So others who worked together, they got a very good grade. And I said, what was the difference? Well, because I had to give up some of my thoughts, listen to other people, and some of my ideas I had to fight for to make sure it got in the paper. And I think that working together is so important for young people, for all of us. One article that was in the Rotary magazine once, this was 2 years ago or so, they reported on a study some people did in California. And they took the most popular TV shows from the 50s, 60s, and the most popular TV shows from 2015 or so. And they took values. And what were the values shown in these shows? Back in the 50s, it was community, you know. Self was at the bottom. And self is so much at the top for so many people now. I mean, it's clear. You read articles and the narcissism scale has gone up. So many people are so concerned all about themselves. And that's not healthy. You know, you have to get out of yourself.
It doesn't seem to make people happy.
No, it doesn't. No, not at all.
Yeah. And do you find that the students that you've taught here for so many years, that they can hold on to this sense of service and purpose once they have graduated and move into, quote, the world?
I think a lot of them do. I mean, a host of our graduates are very giving and philanthropic towards us. But a lot of them, too, they're very involved in their communities, philanthropic in their communities, but also involved, actually doing things.
Bryce Roberts is a therapist with a deep background in both Christian theology and organizational psychology.
So let's talk about purpose. It's part of what you do professionally, and you have both a clinical background and a spiritual background. Is that a fair?
That's fair, yeah.
Okay. So how do you navigate that with people? How do you walk with people through that search?
It's a good question. One of the first things that comes to mind for me with a question like that is existential psychology. People can bear with anything if they have a deeper sense of why. Why am I here? Why am I engaging in this struggle? What do I want, like, deeply out of my life? And for that school of thought, often that is ascribed, like you have to will that. You have to muster that in yourself and find it. And that's what the language of purpose comes up for me when I think of how we make sense out of our life. How do we make meaning out of this experience? And that can be, often we talk about people's passions and what lights them up, and I found personally in my life and also working with others that that's not always so accessible. And so I'm engaged with that. I like that perspective, but if that's not accessible to someone, there's also this conversation around needs. Like, where do I feel the most needy? And that cannot, I feel a need for greater rest or greater relationships or belonging or a sense of contentment or something. And those needs can sometimes draw us in too, to these deeper parts of ourselves where we may find that sense of meaning. So what the existential school of thought says is, where goes meaning? If I don't have a sense of meaning in my life, I haven't figured out how to make meaning of it. If that goes, what comes in then are mental health symptoms. I feel down. I feel anxious. Something feels off within me. It's out of alignment, incongruent. That's how Rogers would talk about. And so this idea of purpose and making meaning out of our life, meaning and purpose, it's not just cute. It's not just an exercise to go through or something. But when we can align and feel that greater congruence within ourselves, we feel healthier. And we often create things in the world that help support and lift up the common good.
You become healthy by promoting health.
Yes, yeah. It's not just an inner experience, but that inner alignment sort of leads to outward creativity.
And do you talk about faith with patients and clients, or do you wait for them to sort of bring it to the table?
I would, if they want to discuss that, I would bring that. I would welcome it, but it's not a priority of mine to bring faith into the conversation. It's not in a clinical setting. Yeah. But it's welcomed in a clinical setting.
Gotcha.
If they want that or not.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Toledo Streets is a unique combination of activism, service, and fraternity. It produces a local street newspaper, which is both partially written and sold on the street by vendors who use the money to help raise themselves up, economically and psychologically. It is an empowerment community and an enterprise for people who have had some bad luck and perhaps made some poor decisions, but intend to transform their lives. We spoke with Val Vetter, the former executive director.
Toledo Street started in 2009, and we serve as a workforce development program that helps those who are facing homelessness or those who are seeking poverty have an avenue to create income for themselves, to become financially and domestically autonomous. And so we see a lot of people come through our doors. We have been a staple in this community for 15 years, and we provide a space of community fellowship and a way for certain individuals to advance themselves where they might not traditionally be able to do so.
Okay, so you create work for people, you create community. That seems very evident here.
Yeah.
And you produce a newspaper.
We do. We produce a monthly newspaper.
Pretty good one.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of that. We have a team of volunteers that actually get that produced every single month.
What are you giving your colleagues and clients here? What are you doing for their lives?
As you can see, this is a place to gather. Many of our vendors come from other cities, other states. and don't necessarily have a support system around them. So we are able to provide them with not only a avenue for income, but also a family, a place where they can come, where they know that we always have our door open, and if anything is going on, we'll be able to welcome them and figure out what steps need to be taken. Yeah. We're a conduit to other human social services, so if housing is needed, if any sort of, drug or alcohol rehabilitation is needed, we are able to make those connections for them. So we kind of serve as sort of a central hub, but we look at it more as this is our family. This is what we do. We have a meal every week. We get together and provide that sort of safety place for these individuals to be able to come.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Ben Stalitz began as a volunteer and is now a staff member of Toledo Streets.
Toledo Streets newspaper is workforce development. So the main mission behind it is to provide no-holds-barred workforce experience to people experiencing poverty, homelessness, stuff like that. But it's more than that. It's a community, and we provide people with, say, a normal job provides a second or a third chance. We provide like a sixth or seventh chance. And so people come here and they can let off some steam, they can vent, they can laugh. There's no red tape around it. So anybody can come in. If they don't have a birth certificate, if they have an extensive criminal record, it doesn't matter. They can come in and they can get a job as long as they're not drinking in the office and not drinking on the job. That's all that it comes down to.
Okay. There's an end product too, right? The job is selling the papers, but also writing the papers, telling their stories.
Yep, it's they're creating their own product and also their own micro business. And in the process, we're hoping that we teach them a few things about what it's like to work in other jobs, just the workforce in general. Yeah.
So how did you come to it? What's your story?
So about 3 years ago, I came to it. I was volunteering here, and they asked me to just work more hours, and they'd give me a little bit of money, and I said, no, thank you. I don't want to ruin this special thing that I've got going with you guys. And after I finally saw that they needed me, I started working.
And when you say it was special, you didn't want to ruin it, what was special about it for you? Like, what did it do for you personally before you were kind of helping to run things?
Well, I was able to just come in and it felt like I was hanging out with I felt like I was one of the vendors. Like I felt like they were just like a group of friends, and I didn't really want to ruin that dynamic, and I felt good about what I was doing with my time, Like I'll walk down the street with my dog a few days of the week to go check on vendors or whatever, and I'm like, I cannot believe I'm getting paid for this. I love talking to these people. They're just like, really interesting but normal people.
Yeah. So what prepared you to do this kind of work?
I don't know. I have anxiety sometimes, and it feels like in like tense situations at this job, it's like when my anxiety finally makes sense. Like I'm able to like in tense situations, when I'm like breaking up disputes that are happening outside, I'm able to really be level-headed, and it feels like I'm really able to be present and arrive for the situation. It wasn't hard to understand that these people are just the same people as everyone else, except for they might not have as good of a support system at home. And so we've all made the same bad mistakes. Like they might not even have as bad of a criminal record as I do, but they just didn't have the support that most people do.
So this is feeding you in some way.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're not a social worker or anything like that by training or trade. You're a musician.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks
for doing this.
Thank you.
Linda is a longtime vendor for Toledo Streets. We met her at her workplace.
Brand new issue with my comic in. Stay focused. Page 9, I believe. Right, thank you.
So Linda, you're the top seller for Toledo Streets.
Correct.
And for a long time.
Yes.
Why is that?
because I work very hard.
Usually on this spot.
No, I go several places.
Oh, you do?
I only go here on Thursday.
And how long have you been doing this?
2009, so I don't know, 14 years maybe.
No way, wow. And what do you like about it?
Meeting a whole bunch of people. And I got to make money. It's my job. I might as well do something that I'm good at.
Yeah. And what do you think about the whole enterprise of Toledo Streets overall?
It's great. And you can be your own boss. If you're not feeling well, then you can take the day off if it's not a very good spot. But if it's a good spot, you better be there or somebody will take it away from you.
Gotcha. And you write for Toledo Streets and do a comic as well.
I just do a comic. I've written a few things that just maybe one or two things got published, but my comic always does. This is Harold.
Ah, yeah.
This is Harold Harris. He's my friend.
Uh-huh.
And this picture was for the calendar, and it was this other vendor. He's not around anymore, but he's a nice man too. He took this picture, so I drew a picture of Harold and I put it over that, and that's transportation, and he says all aboard.
Nice. So is this the best spot of all your different spots?
No,
Oh, what's the best one?
the market.
The market. That makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
a pleasure. We spoke with two students from St. Francis about their hopes, dreams, and sense of purpose. Tell us about your enterprise, what you're involved in. It's pretty interesting.
I'm involved in a couple, programs, Afro Club, Interaction Club, and then also the Program Inc. The Program Inc. is a program where fatherless kids or fatherless children come together and be one. That program has taught me how to be more responsible, more respectful, and to be a businessman of myself. And when I'm going to college for social work, so I will be helping children or teenagers my ages or anybody who needs help, because that's my passion, is to make people's lives better. We are able to help people grow, help fatherless children grow, and we just want people to be successful.
And how about you? What is it about service that attracts you? How does it change you?
I think it's the purpose of my life. I mean, we get up every day and think about what we need first, and we have to do that. But I think life is supposed to be so much more exciting than that. About giving to others, and then they pay it forward. So, service attracts me because I'm where I am because people have served me, and there's nothing more exciting to me than bringing others to a place like that too.
It sort of pulls you out of your daily existence?
Absolutely. I find the days where I'm the most sad is where I'm isolated from other people, or I'm just thinking about myself. Thinking about the next minute or whatever, or overwhelmed by what's happening 2 years from now.
Yeah.
But the days where I'm happiness, I'm lost. I'm lost in serving others. I'm with all these other people. I couldn't care how much honor or recognition I'm getting, or what the weather's like, or anything like that. That's what service does to a person.
Well, thank you both so much for talking to us.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Take
Thank
care.
you for interviewing us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Something Father O said stuck with me. We'll give him the last word.
Do you know Father Jonathan White?
No.
So he's in Port Clinton now. He was at Christ the King. That's where I first met him, and he taught here for a few years. I went to his 25th anniversary Mass. He gave this homily, and he said, I got a lot of cards, thank you. And he said, some people ask me, if you knew then what you know now about this life, would you have done it? And he says, oh, no. You could see faces dropping in church. And he said, but isn't this true of you too? If you knew what marriage was going to involve in raising these kids, would you have done it? No. He said, so we make a commitment to someone, to something, after we live out that commitment, we find out who we are. We find ourselves. And I think that's very true. I think it's very true. I think that's an important lesson for young people to learn.
John Henry Newman wrote, "God has created me to do him some definite service. He has committed some work to me which he has not committed to another. I am a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons." All of the people you have met on this program are links in that chain. All have found antidotes to the prisons of anxiety and ego. The common theme? Service, purpose through service, and so some measure of happiness.
The views and opinions expressed in listening are those of the host of the program and its guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of WGTE Public Media.
Listening with Keith Burris is supported in part by Stop and Go convenience stores and the Toledo Clinic, also by viewers like you. Thank you.